Hey everyone, so welcome back to another technical episode. So we just went over the armor set effects and how I went about implementing the functions to actually run them, and this time we're going to go over the attribute side of things. So if you didn't know, I also made weapons trimmable now, right? So we can add redstone to an iron sword, you can add it to all the different swords, and using our new tooltip, it has silence plating from the template, and then also has attack speed triple plus from the redstone, right? So it no longer says material, and no longer just says silence template, whatever it used to be, silence trim. It's now specific terminology for the data pack to make it a little bit more intuitive, hopefully. But yeah, how did we actually go about adding the different attributes to the weapons? Because it doesn't actually add it to the weapon, right? It adds to the player once they have the weapon equipped. Now, the easiest thing to probably really do is allow or add the attributes to the actual item, so search for them. This is far easier to accomplish if you're, for instance, drop crafting or crafting something new, rather than using the smithing table. But we have nonetheless, right? So again, we're performing inventory checks like we went over last time. So if the respective item is in a specific slot, be it your selected item, your offhand, or any of your armor slots, you're going to gain the attribute bonus associated with the upgrade tooltip. Now, in terms of the actual functions, we have a lot to go through. This is by and large my biggest set of functions, because I have really split up so that, again, it does cause the least amount of tick lag. Working with NBT data, working with attributes can cause a lot of tick lag, so it's really important that you do segment these types of functions. So, starting off, we have a controller down the bottom somewhere here. It should just be tick, armor, trim, attributes, perfect. And after this, all we're doing is checking on several different timer intervals, the different slots associated with the armor trims. So for instance, 100 is your boots, 101 leggings, 102 chestplate, 103 is your helmet, 106 is technically negative 106, but it's kind of weird if you add a negative sign into the function name, and then 19 is just what I'm using for the selected item. So all these run every 3 seconds at different intervals, right, about 10 ticks apart, and then we end up with, why is that is wrong. That's better, right? 59, 1, 2, 3, yeah. Okay, and then they, of course, correspond to another controller. So if we go to 19, for instance, we have just armor trim attributes, 19, followed by 19A, AN, B. Essentially, all these different secondary letters are just code for whatever the actual attribute is. So for instance, 19A would be amethyst, 19AN would be ancient, and so on. So, again, the main controller runs the other controllers over a 3-second interval, and then for those main controllers, we then run all of the different attribute commands. So function, Runechant, 19A, all the way down. If I was really serious about this, I would add in the NBD checks, right, to this side of the coin. In fact, probably to the overall controller. But because we have split everything up, again, we're only running 24 or so commands every 3 seconds, functions I should say, and not all those functions actually run because, again, it's performing NBT checks. Okay, so 19A, we'll start from the top, right? So this is for the amethyst. We do a couple things. We run this tag, right? So bonus calc slot 19. Only if the player has the bonus calc. So essentially, I'm using tags to limit how many times the attributes are updated for players, and if another player were to equip an item and cause this chain of events to trigger, they in themselves wouldn't cause it to re-trigger for anyone else who has equipment equipped, right? So it's gating the functions, if you will, so that, again, it cuts down on that tick lag. After which, then, we are just applying attributes to the player depending on slots. So for instance, again, this is 19, so this is the selected item. So it's going to add a attribute corresponding to the bonuses associated with amethyst to the player who has the item in that slot. If they take it out of the slot within that 3-second interval, it'll be triggered again. It'll check whether or not they have the bonus calc. If they have the bonus calc but don't have the item, or they have the bonus calc and the attributes and don't have the item, essentially all these different combinations of filtering, it will either add or remove the attributes from the player, right? So this way it doesn't cause too much lag. Now that, in my head, right, sounded fine, but I'm pretty sure that was a terrible way of explaining it. Okay, if we open up the tick lag, right, so we take that out of the slots, put back, you should see a slight peak, and I think it's the one over here that you can sort of see. This isn't a big one. No, we're not really getting tick lag. Should probably make sure we have the attribute then. Maybe it's a lot more effective than I thought. You know what? We're not giving it 3 seconds to clear, right? So if we wait for 3 seconds, attributes, blah, blah, blah. This is also the wrong way to do it. I'd rather the data command. Data get entity, us, attributes. Right, so right now we have none. We go over to the sword, there's the peak. And we check, we have the attributes, right? So there is that slight peak when it is updating the attributes. Because again, NBT or data modifying in any form, it could be players or entities, causes a lot of tick lag. So by using this filter, we make sure that that spike, if you will, only happens when it's necessary, right? So we're really trying to cut down on the amount of tick lag as much as possible. If you're swapping gear all the time, yes, there might be some issues, but overall this should be fine for handling this type of update. Now again, you could just add the attributes to the items, but you'd have to come up with a new crafting mechanism, and I rather like just using the inbuilt smithing table, right? And then the other side of the coin, which I don't think we talked about in the last one, is the armor material bonuses. Okay, so there's also a bonus if you have a full set of the same trim material. So rather than looking for the trim pattern in every slot, this time we're looking for the trim material in every slot. And then just like the armor set effects, they run all these different commands, right? So all of these different material set bonus, and they in themselves cause different effects. So for instance, if you had full gold trimmed and then raw gold in your inventory, you would gain resistance 2. If you had a full set of honeycomb, you would gain regeneration. And again, super simple to use because we are just searching for the NBT data in specific slots. And then in the case of attributes, applying attributes using this filter by way of tagging the player with bonus calc so it doesn't continuously reapply the attributes. Right? Let me try it one more time to explain this a little bit better. Right? Okay, so the chain of events. It tags the player who has trimmed items with bonus calc 19. It then applies the attributes to them. If then at any point they have the bonus calc, but they no longer have trimmed items in the desired slot, so in this case it's the selected item, it will remove that bonus calc tag, allowing the attributes to then be removed, thus hopefully minimizing the amount of tick lag. So again, altogether, fairly simple to put together. It's really just about writing things out, copy and pasting, and doing them over and over again, right? Because it's the same methodology for every single item. If you add in your own trims, your own patterns, you're just searching for those new items. So in the case of the gladiator armor or the ancient trim, right, I'm just searching for ancients or gladiator and then applying the corresponding effects if that NBD data is met, right? So again, looking for the different slots. Selected item, offhand is negative 106. Helmet, I believe, is 103, 102, 101, 100. And whether or not there is an item with, again, trim, brackets, material, and then whatever the material is. Okay, so this redstone, if it was a trim pattern, right, it would be trim pattern, and then whatever the pattern is, and then you just apply or run your different functions. So again, overall, it's pretty simple to set up. There is obviously issues with it in terms of lag. If you can figure out ways to gate it and make sure it only runs whenever it's completely necessary, then you're going to have a much better time. So for instance, again, with the sword, right, we unequip it, we'll get a lag spike when the calculation has occurred again, right, the attributes being applied or removed, and then we're back to normal. We go and equip the sword again, we have that big spike because again, it's applying attributes and working with attributes or doing anything to modify the player's data or entity data is always going to cause a lot of tick lag because there is a lot of calculations to it. But altogether, we're just running the functions on a as needed basis, and therefore we're not causing a huge amount of tick lag. Right, so that should be pretty much it for those two things, right? So that's how to utilize or search for armor trims, right, and create special set effects and apply attributes. And next one will be weapons, right? I'm working very hard to do the art and the effects for my custom weapons, which will, again, be using the trim system. So the same sort of fashion. This time we'll be looking for a scoreboard, activator, as well as a specific trim or pattern on the weapon, which will then cause a special ability to trigger. So for instance, I think I have all the art done. So if we were, that is not the right, you're the right one, right? Okay, so we have Heart of the Sea and we have Wild. If I change Wild, I believe, to Affinity, we'll go with Ocean, right? And then we'll get ourselves a Netherite axe. Hopefully this works. Need a button though. It's also going to give me some armor, but it's fine. No, not quite. In fact, not right at all. Did I do it right? Did I mix them up? Let me double check. Yeah, my bad. I got them backwards. So Affinity Ocean should go where the Heart of the Sea is. And then this can go to any template, or it can go to one of my new ones, which would be weapon underscore block, for instance. Right, so weapon underscore block. Let's try again. There we go. So we now have a new axe, right? It's got sort of the Heart of the Sea looking face, if you will. Very neat. You can't actually see the handle. Should move the model or extend it so, you know, it's a bit of a bigger axe. But anyway, looks neat, right? I think I like the Heart of the Sea textures. And in terms of the effects, it says trigger effects by blocking and then has ocean affinity. So the idea is every weapon can have a trigger mechanism, in this case it's blocking, and then a affinity, which will dictate the majority of the special abilities. But I do also want to add in some lore modifiers, if you will, just some generic abilities, stuff like maybe Onslaught, where if you defeat an enemy, you gain haste and strength or something like that. Overall, that is what we're going to be touching on next. Ooh, lots of functions for that one. Be fun to go over, although it'll be funner showing off the different effects. Hope you enjoyed. See ya.